First, what we do is a pledge of allegiance. And I'd like to have Supervisor Steyer lead us, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We always do have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We can have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And good evening. My name is Max Godhorn, and I'm privileged to serve as the chair of the Botetourt Board of Supervisors in Surrey Valley District. And now I'd like to reconvene this meeting. And to start with, I'll introduce the other board members. To my far left, to your right, we have Mr. Tim Snyder serving the Amsterdam District, Mr. Walt Michael serving the Blue Ridge District, Mr. Brandon Nicely to my right, serving the Fincastle District, and Ms. Linda Rodman serving the Buchanan District to my far right. We also have our county attorney, our county administrator, Mr. Gary Crew, with us this evening. Set the stage, we have two separate public hearings tonight. First public hearing for the advertised budget, plan, revenues, and expenditures, and operations and services for the upcoming fiscal year. The second public hearing is for the proposed tax rates that support the budget. To just be clear, there are no changes in tax rates. The purpose of the meeting and the hearing is board listening to your thoughts about the proposed budget and tax rates. Board members will not have any discussion or response to questions or comments. This is a listening session only. No decision.
Howard, you coward.
Please.
Coward.
No decisions will be made until please have you be quiet. No decisions will be made until the next regular board meeting. Before the public hearings begin, we will hear from Finance Director Katie Davis, who will provide an overview of an advertised budget. Immediately after Ms. Davis' presentation, I will open the public hearing. The acting board clerk and moderator, Senior Director Julie Phillips, will review public hearing protocols and announce the names of each speaker. For that, thank you, Ms. Davis, for the context here. Yeah.
Good evening, members of the board and all the this evening. My name is Katie Davis. I am the Finance Director for Botetourt County. I do have a quick overview to provide everyone this evening of the FY27 advertised budget to hopefully provide a little bit more context into the numbers and also how that those were derived. Before I begin, just a quick check that everyone can hear me okay. If I can get some thumbs up from the back. And okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'll be going over tonight, first the calendar for the FY27 budget development and adoption. Additionally, the budget challenges faced and subsequent strategies pertaining specifically to the FY27 budget. Additionally, the guidance that served as a framework for creating and evaluating budget requests, an overview of the revenue budget, followed by an overview of the expenditure budget, and key highlights for each categorical section of that. There's also an overview of the capital improvement plan, and finally, ongoing budget considerations. So this week, plan calendar for the FY 27 budget development. We began providing updates to the Board of Supervisors and the public in January and continued those updates monthly. As you can see, we are now at the point of the public hearing. So following this meeting tonight, the plan is to adopt the budget and tax rates that we'll be discussing tonight on May 26th at the regular May board meeting. So as with every budget year, there's always some challenges that we have to overcome. This year, of course, was no different. I have here some highlights of what those challenges were and some strategies that were implemented to try and overcome those. First and foremost, there were indicators of decreases in some of the local revenue. So to help offset this impact, there were frequent and ongoing revenue analysis updates and monitoring throughout the process. If you followed along with the meetings, I'm sure you saw a lot of that. There were constant changes to those numbers each month that we had more information. Additionally, there was also a heavy focus on reducing existing operating costs where possible to help mitigate some of those anticipated reductions in revenue. The second challenge was in how to manage expenditure growth from inflationary increases as well as growing service demands while minimizing the financial impact to citizens. So this was attempted to be addressed through enhanced budget guidelines, which I will go over next, and more stringent reviews throughout the process. This year, I'd say more so than before. And additionally, as Dr. Scotland mentioned, the current local tax rates were maintained to ensure no additional financial burden to the citizens. The next challenge was in satisfying existing operating and capital commitments. So one of the approaches for that was identifying one-time expenditure requests, removing those to instead fund them funds from the current fiscal year FY26. This also allowed for a more structurally balanced budget in order to align ongoing operating revenues and expenditures. Additionally, for ongoing capital projects, we did examine and ultimately decrease the amount of funding that needed to be financed through the use of reserves. This allowed us ultimately to have a pretty significant reduction in our debt service budget for the FY27 budget. Finally, and this was a big one too, uncertainty with the state budget also posed an additional challenge. So this was addressed by building in some flexibility into the budget in consideration of additional adjustments that we may need to contend with once the state budget is in fact complete. Additionally, the appropriations for the schools will continue to occur on a quarterly basis as it did in FY26, so that with the potential for adjustments can be made if it is needed. So I mentioned in the previous slide, one of the tactics implemented early in the budget process was strengthen guidelines to really establish a stronger framework in which to build the budget. So these guidelines include a maximum of 3% increase for non-personnel operating requests. So that would include all operating expenses, excluding personnel costs. Additionally, requiring additional information and justification for all budget requests. Departments will also ask to scrutinize their existing budgets and eliminate or reduce any non-essential expenditures that were included. Capital requests were also itemized. This was something new we tried this year, so that the any operating impacts could also be identified and considered before a funding commitment would be made. And then finally, aligning the budget requests with demonstrated needs or service demands. So now I'm going to shift over to revenue. So up here we have the FY27 proposed revenue figures as advertised. Just for clarity, we will be focusing on those revenues subject to county discretion, which is included in the top half of the page here. Go ahead and circle that. So the total for this is $107.7 million. If you reference the advertised budget, you will see it's more. I just want to be clear that this is the section we'll be focusing on. So this chart shows that the allocation of the funding sources that make up the $107.7 million. I do want to note that it does include $11.9 million in one-time revenue. This includes $2.1 million from the health fund as well as $9.8 million from EDA grants. which is a fairly significant amount. So if we exclude the EDA grant revenue, the true change from the FY '26 adopted budget to the FY '27 advertised budget is actually a decrease of $1 million. Additionally, as you can see from the chart, the dark blue, hopefully that's coming across okay. The primary funding source does come from local revenue, which comprises 75% of the total. So this chart really shows the categories that make up that local revenue figure. So as you can see, the largest component of the local revenue comes from real property taxes. It comprises almost half at 48.8%. So following this category, personal property taxes and other local taxes comprise 15.6% and 15.2% respectively. This is followed by machinery and tools at 8.4% and public service corporations at 5.3%. The remaining categories make up a relatively small amount, or a little over 8% of the total. So now moving on to the expenditure side of the budget. So this chart shows a comparison of the FY '27 advertised budget to the prior year, which is FY '26. So the top first bar shows the FY '26 adopted budget. This totaled $98.8 million. The second bar shows the FY '27 proposed budget that was advertised, and that totals $107.7 million, as mentioned. However, I do want to note that on the revenue side, again, there was a significant one-time allocation from the EDA grants that was included in the budget of $9.8 million. So again, for comparison purposes, there is a third bar showing what that would look like without that extraordinary revenue. That would put the FY '27 advertised budget, excluding the EDA grants, at a total of $97.9 million, which again is roughly a $1 million decrease from the '26 budget. So as we go into a little bit more detail on the expenditure side of the budget, the information is going to be discussed in terms of expenditure categories. So this is sort of a quick reference guide of those categories, and has a little more context for each. So these categories include general government, judicial administration, public safety, health and welfare, non-departmental, public works, education, parks, recreation, cultural, and community development. So all expenses will get included into one of these categories. That does also include external organizations. They're also placed under the appropriate expenditure categories so that like items are reported together. So again, you can see the proposed budget, the total $107.7 million, which of course does align with the revenue, advertised revenue total. So this shows the funding allocation by those categories that I just mentioned. Education being the highest at 34.5%, followed closely by public safety at 28.1%. So these two categories combined make up almost 2/3 of the budget, not quite, which is pretty typical what we see in most years. So now moving into some of the highlights of the FY '27 advertised budget. We're going to start with general government. I just want to note on each of these slides, you'll see at the bottom, the departments are listed, hopefully to give some additional context of what is included in this. So some of the highlights in general government, there was a capital projects assistant position added to further support operations for the project management office. There was also support for staff advancement for the Commissioner for Revenue and the Treasurer's offices. Additionally, there was a transfer of expenses from central purchasing to finance to reflect a change in reporting structure. I do want to clarify, this was not a new item, this was simply a transfer from one functional area to another, again, to reflect that reporting change. And finally, there was support for a new Microsoft Enterprise Agreement for technology services, which does cover a 3-year term, meaning once that's paid, that cost will show up again for 3 years. Okay, moving on to judicial administration. There were some inflationary increases relative to administrative expenses, such as postage. I'm sure most people know that that's going to go up quite a bit. There's also an addition for the Axon body camera contract to the Commonwealth's attorney in order to effectively access the information. I do want to note that this item is covered by the EDA grant funds that were previously mentioned. So moving on to public safety, the much larger portion of the Axon Body contract is, of course, included here through the sheriff's office. Again, this is covered by the EDA grant funds. Additionally, there were inflationary increases to maintenance contracts to support the sheriff and dispatch functions. There was also an increase to the Roanoke Center for Animal Care and Protection. This is based on an agreement that we have that's determined by usage. The full year impact of the radio technicians for emergency communications was also included. That was a partial year item last year. And as well as support for volunteer fire apparatus maintenance. Finally, there was a decrease in contributions to the Roanoke Valley Juvenile Detention Center. This is also by agreement and determined by usage. So in Public Works, there was a new administrative position for maintenance. There were also some inflationary increases for preventative maintenance service contracts, as well as increases related to the recycling program. For health and welfare, there were some cost increases for the Department of Social Services. I want to note that there is a revenue component, so there is a partial offset of some of these that's reflected on the revenue side. Additionally, for children's services, this item is level funded. Of course, as noted, there may be amendments may be needed during the year to support the growing cost trends for mandated services on this. This item also has a partial revenue recovery that's reflected in the revenue side. For Parks, Recreation, and Cultural, there were some inflationary increases in operating expenses. Additionally, there was some deferring of ongoing projects for the libraries to a later year in order to reduce expenses for FY27. There was also a decrease in both personnel and operating costs for the sports complex. For community development, there was an increase in the contribution to Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge. This is funded by an agreement also, and is paid through taxes that are collected for the hotel tax, which does mean that this amount can vary from what's budgeted. If we collect more revenue, they will receive more revenue. If we collect less revenue, they will receive less. Additionally, there was a removal of an existing vacant position for economic development. So for education, the primary component is support for Botetourt County Public Schools. For the FY27 budget, this included a contribution of approximately $35.2 million. This reflects an increase of $2.8 million from the prior year, FY26. Additionally, there is some one-time revenue of 1.9 million from the EDA grants. So that will be utilized for capital maintenance needs. And again, since it's one time, it will not be recurring next year. There's also some indirect support for debt service and maintenance for schools that is reflected elsewhere in the budget under those departments that provide those services. In addition to this, there is ongoing support for the Virginia Western CCAP program, as well as Mountain Gateway Community College. So for non-departmental, there was an overall reduction to debt service. As I mentioned before, there was a lot of evaluation of using reserves that allowed us to decrease the amount that was financed, and ultimately the debt schedule was lowered quite a bit for the bonds issued due to the use of reserves. Additionally, as part of that bond issuance, there was a refunding that occurred on existing debt from the regional jail, so we were able to capture some cost savings from that as well. There's also an allotment included in this category for cost of living adjustments and/or bonuses to align with state mandates once those are completed and fully known. Additionally, there's an operations support position. Okay, so for the FY27 capital improvement plan, the recommended figure in total is 8.6 million. For all categories. So of these funds, approximately $7.5 million are funded from EDA grants, the remaining $1.1 million funded with direct county funds. So the largest portion of this includes Parks, Recreation, and Cultural projects at 84.5%. This includes a community center, park maintenance support, the Recreation Incentive Fund, and the Buchanan Library branch. The second largest category is public safety at 6.9%. This includes jail chiller replacement, fire EMS replacement vehicle, and cardiac heart monitor replacements. The next category would be public works, that's at 5.6%. This includes HVAC upgrades and office renovations. And the smallest categories are general government at 1.8% and community development at 1.2%. This includes technology equipment replacement and the final year contribution to the YMCA. So that covers the highlights for all the different budget categories. This is just sort of a graphic representation of how the money is being spent for FY27. I do want to note that this does exclude those non-recurring revenues from the DDA grants that you mentioned to give a better picture of what that looks like on a normal basis, because that does skew the information a little bit. So you can see it's broken out by category from left to right, essentially representing the percentage allocation to those categories. So finally, we do have some ongoing budget considerations to keep in mind as we move forward. The first is that the real estate assessment cycle is now 5 years instead of 4, which does mean that the next reassessment will not be reflected in the revenues until FY30. The second, as mentioned, there were some non-recurring revenues this year that were utilized, that being the EDA grants and use of health fund. So that will continue to play a role as we move forward to developing the FY28 budget. Additionally, with the state budget not yet complete, there may be a need to amend the budget once that is complete and known. This may impact adjustments to revenues, which of course could be in our favor, could go up. That's certainly a possibility, as well as potential amendments for compensation adjustments, as mentioned. Finally, the appropriations to Botetourt County Public Schools for both the county contributions as well as the capital reserve is planned to be done on a quarterly basis for FY27, similar to FY26. So that will occur at an allocation of 40% for the first quarter, 30% in the second quarter, and then 15% in the third and fourth quarter. Okay. So that does conclude my presentation for this evening. I do want to note there are some additional materials available online for anyone who's interested. Those can be accessed at botetourtpa.gov/annual budget, or you're welcome to use the QR code that's here. Or if you have neither of those, if you direct yourself to the Botetourt's homepage and go to finance, there will be a section for annual budget. So thank you all for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, again for that context and hard work putting this information together. Next, we will proceed to the first public hearing on the fiscal year 2026-27 general budget as advertised. After I open the public hearing, moderator Phillips will review the public hearing protocols and announce the names of each speaker in turn. And now I open the public hearing. Ms. Phillips, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thumbs up. Can everyone hear me? Excellent. Thank you. For the benefit of anyone who is new to these formal public hearings, there are specific protocols to ensure a fair and orderly process. Each speaker will have exactly 3 minutes. You can see a countdown of your time on the timer here up in front of me. You can conclude your remarks early, or you can use your full time up to the 3 minutes. When the timer beeps at the end of the 3 minutes, we must move on promptly to the next person so that all speakers have a fair opportunity. As a reminder, you may hear differing viewpoints from your Botetourt neighbors, so please be respectful of each speaker and allow them the opportunity to be heard without interruption. To run through some logistics, I will read out the name of the next speaker, followed by the speaker who is on deck or next in line to speak. If you hear your name as on deck, if you would please make your way to one of the microphones up here in front. I think we have one right here. So if you could just make your way to the microphone while the person in front of you is speaking, that should help reduce some lag time between the speakers. When you get to the microphone, please state your name and district clearly for the record. And just so everyone knows, we do hear Botetourt residents first, and at the very end, if any non-residents have signed up to speak, they will have an opportunity as well. Mr. Chair, we're ready when you are.
I do wish to emphasize that I'll be holding the time limit to no more than 3 minutes, as there's several people who'd like to speak. Who was the first speaker?
Our first speaker tonight has an early bedtime, so we're putting her first, Effie McCready. You can make your way to the front. And on deck, we have Tammy Riggs.
Hi there. My name is Effie McCready. I'm 11 years old and soon I'll be graduating from Colonial Elementary. I know I'm only in 5th grade and I'm not even old enough to vote yet. But my mom and my dad taught me the power of my voice. So I'm here representing the elementary kids of Botetourt County. I am leading a brand new, beautiful school within a few short years. So I will be attending a high school built in 1951. Lord Botetourt will be 67 years old this year. According to my grandpa, that's retirement age. In the next 5 years, you will be planning to spend $35 million on firefighters and policemen. While I know both of those are important, if you're going to spend that much money, why can't it be on protecting us by installing security measures we need in our schools? The last meeting, you said people in our community would not be willing to pay for all the improvements we really need. My question is, why haven't you asked them yet? Before I came today, I learned I needed to call it a proposal to pay for all these things we're asking for. Then, will you let us vote on a bond proposal? I want to thank you for my time up here, and I'll leave you with one more thing to think about. One day, I can be a doctor, an engineer, or even a policeman myself. How will I get there without my teachers? How will I get there without my classroom, my books, and a school that will support me? There are a lot of places we can put our money, but please invest in me. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tammy Riggs, followed by Landon Buchanan.
Good evening. Thank you. Because I'm short. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight.
Thanks.
I thought you were going to be heard.
Moving on. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to speak to you. I want to take a few moments to address the misconceptions that continue to circulate regarding public school funding and the Botetourt County school budget. First, there seems to be a belief that if enrollment declines, costs automatically decline as well. Unfortunately, it simply doesn't work that way. Yes, enrollment has declined slightly over time, but having 1 or 2 fewer students in a classroom does not suddenly eliminate the cost of operating that classroom. The teacher is still needed. The lights still have to stay on. The buses still drive the same routes. Buildings still require maintenance, heating, cooling, insurance, technology, and staffing. We still must meet legal requirements for special education services, transportation, safety, and student support. Public education is not like a business where you can simply reduce production when numbers fluctuate slightly. Schools must still be fully operational every single day, all 180 of them, to serve all of the students that walk through our doors. Second, providing a quality public education is not optional. It is one of the most fundamental responsibilities of local government. Strong schools directly impact economic growth, workforce development, property values, community safety, and the future success of our county. Businesses look at schools before investing in a community. Families look at schools before deciding where to live. The strength of the community and the strength of the schools are deeply connected. Third, I want to address the claim that Botetourt County spends more per pupil than surrounding division, simply inaccurate. According to the publicly available, to anyone that would like to look it up, information at the BDOE, Roanoke City has the highest per pupil expenditure at $20,752. Botetourt is currently $15,905, only ahead of Bedford County, which is $14,588. And finally, there have been repeated accusations suggesting that the school division is unwilling to trim the budget or look critically at spending. Again, simply not true. The school division did go back and had to go back to the drawing board. Cuts have been made and difficult decisions were made. And our line item budgets, both past, present, and proposed, are publicly available to anyone that would like to review them. There's no hidden agenda here. The goal is not excess. The goal is not wasteful spending. The goal is simple: meeting the needs of students and providing a quality education for every child in Botetourt County. That takes people, it takes resources, and it takes support. And quite honestly, our students, staff, and families deserve a community that stands behind them and recognizes that investing in public education is investing in the future of Botetourt County. I am thankful, and I genuinely appreciate the ones of you sitting there who are doing everything within your power to invest in the quality educational experience that we are known for in Botetourt County. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Landon Buchanan. On deck, we have Sharon Porter.
Hi, my name is Landon Buchanan, and I live in the Amsterdam district. I want to thank our very first speaker, the young lady that gave the information that North Botetourt High School was built in 1959. I graduated from Patrick Henry High School, and Patrick Henry High School was built in 1962. Since then, Patrick Henry High School has been totally demolished, and a brand new school has been built there. And I would just like to know when we are going to start considering putting money into the budget to build a brand new North Botetourt High School. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Sharon Porter. On deck, we have Queenie Puckett.
Sharon Porter, Van Castle District. I find it interesting this meeting required relocation due for a large crowd. Yet there's a great deal more going on in the county than putting for taxpayer money. I have found that participation in the county government is very important. Today's reality, though, is $20 million was borrowed, and the county must pay that back. Every department in the county has to sacrifice in order to be fiscally responsible. I'm not really sure why we're here tonight. I believe each supervisor knows how they will vote on the 26th. Ms. Rockman and Mr. Michael made the difficult decision to vote responsibly and will vote by balanced budget. I requested that my supervisor, Mr. Nicely, do the same. I vote Mr. Snyder and Dr. Starhorn will not ignore the citizens they represent in order to be in favor with the county administration. The school board has not proven they are fiscally responsible with taxpayer money in the past, so please do not reward their lack of transparency. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Whitney Puckett. On deck, we have Nelson.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Whitney Puckett. I'm a teacher here at Botetourt High School and a resident of Botetourt County. To begin, thank you for allowing me this time to voice my support for your recent decision to increase school funding. I will say that I do not envy the difficult task of navigating the deep waters of the budget process. And please know that your decision to prioritize our classrooms is recognized and deeply appreciated. Tonight, though, I want to go beyond appreciation and use this time to affirm that your decision is not just supported, it is sound and in keeping with what is best for our community. First, by choosing to invest in our schools, This board is making a practical and positive economic decision for the long-term prosperity of Botetourt County. Research strongly supports that financial investment in schools directly improves the local real estate market. Our tradition of academic excellence is what draws stable, tax-paying families to Botetourt, as supported by data from the National Association of Realtors, which shows that 24% of all home buyers and 42% of millennial buyers prioritize school quality when choosing a home. Additionally, academic strength translates directly into home equity. Research published by the American Economic Journal and Duke University proves that a simple 5% improvement in a district's test scores raises local home prices by 2.5%. Furthermore, an open door study shows that homes in top-ranked school districts, like Botetourt County, secure significantly more online traffic and sell an average of 8 days faster. Your investment directly preserves the financial baseline of every property owner in this county and in this room. Second, the data proves that school funding alters the life trajectory of our children. A study published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics found that a 10% increase in per pupil spending each year across a student's K-12 career leads to 7.25% higher wages in adulthood and drastically reduces adult poverty rates. In other words, investment in education yields dividends. It returns to our community through stronger local economies and better outcomes for children. I'm here tonight to assure you that you are doing the right thing. Clearly, communications about taxes can be politically divisive. However, this isn't a vanity project. It isn't reckless spending. You are investing in the most valuable commodity we have and protecting our classrooms from state funding shortfalls. This is what your constituents want, because your decision ensures our children will earn higher wages, our properties will retain premium values, and Botetourt will remain a highly sought after community. Thank you for choosing to invest in our collective future.
Our next speaker is Bill Van Velzer. On deck, we have Annie Puckett.
Bill Van Velzer, City Council District. Used to be a better extemporaneous speaker, so I've prepared remarks. Now that I'm retired, I think I maybe lost my head a little bit. My message tonight to county administration and the current Board of Supervisors writ large is that neither of you represent my interests as a resident taxpayer of Botetourt County. To the Blue Ridge of the County Supervisors, I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to those other guys. I can only speak for myself, of course, but I think there are a few people here tonight, and many, many more who are not here, who may feel the same way. This resident taxpayer wants a county budget where expenditures match income. Full stop. Period. In capital letters and underscored. In this connection, I'd like to remind both the board and county administration that the times we are changing. We have carried far too much debt for far too long, and the end result is a county where increasing numbers of residents are frustrated and angered over how county government has flooded the zone with endless construction projects while simultaneously raising our taxes. Great. We get it twofer. Higher costs to pay for things a lot of us don't want more. So what are those things? Well, a still costly sports complex that never seems to get enough funding. Stop and go traffic through Daleville that I must plan for every time I drive through that nightmare called Daleville Town Center. Or how about those 680-foot tall industrial scale wind turbines going up in a forest conservation district? Let's not forget the push for community scale solar projects that bit by bit threaten to eat up traditional Botetourt County farmland in favor of a monthly check from out-of-state speculators. And then there's the Google data center project that seems more and more ill-conceived with every breaking story.
So what are you doing? I'd like to remind the current 3 out of 5 supervisors that our county and our county administration, the 2 shots have already been fired across your bow. The first came from Blue Ridge District about 4 years ago. And in case you all failed to hear that one, a second shot came out of the Buchanan District more recently. One of the things that life teaches us is that once is random, 2 begins to happen. There are 3 supervisor positions up for re-election next
Thank you,
year.
Mr. Van
My guess is
Ms. Puckett.
time and time again by now, from scores of about hundreds of
Bill.
other people, is that there will be a
3
third
minutes.
shot, and it's
3 minutes. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Annie Pocket. On deck, we have Ellie Shaw.
Good evening. My name is Annie Puckett, a member of the Amsterdam District, and I'm a sophomore at Botetourt High School. I'm here tonight to ask you to follow through on your commitment to increase funding for our school system by $2.8 billion. I'm not standing here as someone speaking about statistics on a spreadsheet. I'm standing here as someone whose life was directly changed by the investment this community made to its schools. I grew up in Roanoke County Public Schools, and for most of my childhood, I was labeled as a general level student. That label followed me. It shaped the expectations people had for me, and eventually the expectations I had for myself. I was never seen as someone who would take advanced classes, lead organizations, or excel academically. But when I entered Botetourt County Public Schools in 5th grade, something changed. I was surrounded by teachers who saw potential in me before I saw it in myself. I was given resources, encouragement, and opportunities that challenged me to grow rather than keeping me in a box. My teachers invested their time in me. They pushed me. They believed I could do more. Because of that investment, I'm now a sophomore taking dual enrollment pre-calculus. I'm the captain of the debate team. I'm involved in leadership, academics, and extracurricular activities that I never would have once imagined myself capable of. That transformation didn't happen by accident. It happened because this school system has educators who were skilled enough, supported enough, and equipped enough to help students succeed. But the reality is that those opportunities only continue if we continue to invest in them. When schools are underfunded, students lose opportunities before they even know they have them. Programs shrink, teachers burn out, class sizes grow, resources disappear. And students like me, students who simply needed someone to believe in them and give them the right tools, can fall through the cracks. Education funding is not about building test scores or budgets. It's about potential. It's about whether students are given the chance to discover what they are capable of. I'm asking you tonight to honor your promise to increase funding for our schools because I'm living proof that it works. There are more students sitting in classrooms right now who can become leaders, scholars, and successful adults if they were given the same opportunities I was given. Please do not take those opportunities away from them. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Ellie Shaw. On deck, we have Katie Corey.
Hello, my name is Ellie Shaw, and I'm from the Amsterdam District. I'm a freshman at Lower Botetourt High School. I want to start by thanking those of you who voted yes to adding an extra $2.8 million for flat funding, and those of you who didn't. I hope by the end of this, you will have reflected upon and hopefully reconsidered your initial decision. And of course, I want to thank all of you for listening to what I have to say. I know that flat funding is a challenging situation that leads to difficult decisions regarding cuts in various areas that might have harmful domino effects on both schools and students. I believe that adding these extra funds is very important to ensuring student success, of which I believe starts with teachers. Ultimately, this funding keeps quality teachers in the classroom. Teachers have such a large impact on the students. They don't just teach us about the core subjects, but they also help us develop skills that set us up for successful futures. I have had so many amazing teachers throughout my school career, and all of these teachers contributed to where I am today. Currently, I'm also a student at the Roanoke Valley Governor's School, and the chain of events that led me here all starting with my 3rd and 4th grade teacher, Miss Emily Keogh at Greenfield Elementary. Miss Keogh was the one who suggested I be tested for the gifted program at my school, which led to me being put in advanced classes, which made it possible for me to apply and be accepted into the governor's school. I also had teachers who were simply just supportive and kind to me. They helped me keep going and want to keep going, even when I was struggling with something. Sometimes just having a person you can talk to can make all the difference. With your continued commitment to funding, Botetourt County Schools can hire not just any teacher, but teachers who truly shape who we become as students and as people for the better. Once we walk across that stage, we won't stop being part of Botetourt County, because one day, if we're lucky, we will come back to this great community and make an impact. And our former teachers will have played a huge role in that future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Katie Corey. On deck, we have Lee Martell.
Good evening. My name is Katie Corey. I'm a homeowner in the Valley District and a parent in Botetourt County with deep personal ties to this school system. My brothers and I all began our education in Botetourt County Public Schools. Today, one is preparing to begin his career as a civil engineer with Appalachian Power after working there as an intern. Another is a senior chief petty officer in the United States Navy aboard a ballistic missile submarine, approaching 18 years of service. I work full-time in predictive modeling and healthcare while also teaching at the university level. We are all products of this school system. And when I think about why that matters, I don't just think about academics. I think about teachers like Sandy Gates, who told me every single day in kindergarten that I was awesome. I think about Patricia Watson writing in my 6th grade yearbook that she expected signed copies of all my future books someday. Those things mattered. Those teachers mattered. That same spirit still exists in the teachers my daughter encounters today. What concerns me is that the level of investment in our schools has not kept pace with the level of dedication we continue expecting from our educators. The gymnasium my 4th grade daughter plays basketball in through Parks and Rec at Breckenridge Elementary School is the same gymnasium where I had PE as a student decades ago. I'm 40 years old, for the record. Many of our facilities remain largely unchanged from when I attended these schools myself. At Greenfield Elementary, the PTA helps fund programs and improvements many people assume are already covered by the school's budget. Programs like Mystery Science and Reflex Math, classroom reimbursements, activity boards, student assistant funds, beautification projects, technology replacements, playground improvements. Those are not luxuries. Those are gaps being filled by parents and educators. At the same time, teachers continue managing classrooms that may technically fall within guidelines, but still push what is reasonable for one person to effectively handle day after day. Yet despite that, students continue succeeding academically and progressing successfully. That success is not accidental. It is the direct result of educators who consistently go above and beyond expectations, often using their own money to provide classroom supplies, snacks, and learning tools for students. And when compensation is discussed, this is not about excess. Botetourt County starts elementary school teachers at just over $46,000. That's from a posting today. Nearby divisions, including Roanoke County, Salem, and Roanoke City, all start higher, with additional supplements for advanced degrees and years of experience. We say we value teachers, but budgets reveal priorities. I want to be clear. I don't want higher taxes, but I also cannot support narratives suggesting our school system is financially irresponsible when so much of what sustains it is already being subsidized. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lee Martell. And on deck, we have Amelia Sanford.
Hello, Lee Martell, Buchanan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Number one, Botetourt just sold 312 acres of taxpayer-funded land to someone else for $18 million. Why is this year's real estate tax not lowered to 40 or 50 cents on $100? Why? Because you guys and the EDA and Gary LaRue spent the money in a performance agreement on goodies and handouts and fun stuff and left us taxpayers holding the bag for essentials. Number two, level funding for the schools is appropriate. The schools cite their success. There is an honesty gap between what the Commonwealth of Virginia reports as reading proficiency rates, 70%, and what the National Assessment of Education Progress reports, which is 30% for 4th and 8th graders. In fact, the Virginia Board of Education has approved a change in cut scores to better align with the reality shown by the NAEP. On top of that, funding to localities is allotted by the state level, advised by the LCI, but they use the staffing ratios defined by the Virginia General Assembly, which is 23-1. Meanwhile, the student-to-teacher ratios at our schools are all between 11-1 and 14-1. Taxpayers are not getting value for the money hemorrhaged into the system. We have a 10-year trend of declining student population, yet the education costs rise every year. Between class size, staff size, and building conditions, what we have is a school money management problem, not a money shortage problem. Do not enable them to continue spending money like it's Las Vegas. Number three, that $600,000 you cited, Dr. Scott-Horn, is projected revenue based on business plans that may happen this year. That's not good fiscal policy to spend what you don't have in hand. Do not add back in $95,000 to tax services. The department head said that he could do without, and you would still get your Microsoft licenses. Do not pilfer $2 million from the county employees' health fund to spend on other things. This money was dedicated to that cause and saved by them for that purpose. You should not disincentivize your own staff from being fiscally responsible with their benefits. Do not fund the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission Greenway project. We don't want that. Do not return $44,000 to the Parks and Rec budget. Their customers who pay with credit cards should pay their own 3% credit card fees, and taxpayers should not be subsidizing things like uniforms, rec equipment, and drive-in movie night. All those things should be paid for by the end users. Do not run up county debt or pilfer county savings in order to bloat the FY27 budget. Make it truly balanced, not living on daddy's credit card. We, your creditors and co-signers, do not approve. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amelia Sanford. On deck, we have Charles Rule.
Hello, my name is Amelia Sanford. I am a current high school senior at Lord Botetourt. My experience at Lord Botetourt High School has been incredibly positive. I could not have asked for a better 4 years out of the incredible staff and faculty, many of whom have joined us tonight, in terms of the education that they have provided me. The only shortcoming that I have perceived in my time here is in the physical condition of the building. And when we're calling that, I vividly remember in 10th grade, I was sitting for my PSAT, a extremely important assessment that determined the trajectory of my life in very many ways. And I was sitting in the auxiliary gym just across the hallway, and I was sitting there on my Chromebook answering math questions. I could hear birds tweeting in the ceiling above me. That, in my opinion, is not conducive to good learning. When students are sitting there trying to accomplish things that will get them further in life, and they are being distracted by the physical ailments of this building that was built in the 1960s. I also am a member of Lord Botetourt's theater program. Every year we put on at least 3 or 4 performances in this auditorium where we are all sitting right now. And for some people in the county, for some taxpayers, that is the only exposure they are getting to Lord Botetourt High School. That is the only time they are sitting in this building and seeing it. And what they see is these curtains. Now, I'm sure you've seen these curtains as all of you are sitting down here. They are not in a condition that is usable. We have to work around them as we are putting on performances. We have to make things like learning our lines, getting our costumes done less important because we have to be navigating around this condition that the curtains are in. It's not conducive to good performances. It's not conducive to good learning. And
something has to be done about it. This is a wonderful place to learn. It is a building full of incredible people, but the building is crumbling. And at a certain point, you can't ignore that. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Charles Rule. On deck, we have Michael Rock.
Good evening, Charles Rule, Castle District. We hear from the schools that Botetourt County Public Schools are ranked 5th in the state, which is impressive. But as a bureaucracy, I don't fully trust the Virginia Department of Education's report cards, as it's in their self-interest to inflate their results. So I looked at third-party rankings. I was particularly interested in high schools because they represent the culmination of K through 12 learning, building on the success or failure of each successive year. U.S. News and World Reports does annual school rankings. They use more components in their criteria, including college readiness. For 2026, out of 335 public high schools in Virginia, Lord Botetourt ranked 143rd, and James River ranked 158th. So the premium price we're paying in Botetourt County is not paying off after all with premium results. And to that point, the Brookings Institution released a study on public schools in November of last year, and the conclusion was there is little correlation between spending and outcomes in public education. So it again begs the question on transparency in our school system. We need a third party to dig into how our schools are spending money and whether it's justified. Teachers are essential, but do we need an army of administrators and other employees who perform tasks better suited to the private sector? Finally, with inflation so high currently, is it right to raise taxes and/or increase debt or spending? According to the Census Bureau, 25.4% of the county residents are 65 and older. The per capita income is $41,217. I have an elderly neighbor on a fixed income who just got a homeowner's insurance bill that had an increase of 23% year over year. People are struggling to make ends meet. At the next public auction on June 2nd, there are 10 properties up for auction because the owners are delinquent on their real estate taxes. 3 in Eagle Rock, 2 in Fincastle, 1 in Troutville, and 4 in Buchanan. You need to represent all residents in Botetourt County, not just county employees. We need level spending for our schools, and the cuts agreed to by the county should be doubled. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Rock, followed by Catherine Hatton.
Thank you for allowing me this time to come before you and speak. I'm Michael Rock. I'm from Blue Ridge. I was born and raised in Botetourt. I've lived my whole life here except for 2.5 years after college. I had to go to West Virginia, but I found my way back. My children have lived in Botetourt their whole lives. I have 5 grandchildren, well actually 6 that attended Botetourt schools. I have 2 currently at Reed Mountain, 1 at Lord Botetourt, and 2 currently at James River. And I'm only telling you this to explain my point of view and what my stake is in the county. I'm a longtime resident and I want to stand up for my Botetourt community. And before I run out of time, I want to get this in. First, it's imperative and your responsibility as representatives of the citizen taxpayers that you develop and approve a budget where the expenditures are equal to or less than the planned income. And that's just economics 101. It's also law. And I favor a budget that matches the income based on a flat tax rate. I don't want my taxes to increase. I think we can work within our budget with some fiscal responsibility planning. And the budget needs to be properly distributed among the different departments and their needs within that flat tax rate. It appears per your advertised budget that you've been able to do that and you accomplished that, and I commend you for that. But I do have one bone to pick. and that was the last Board of Supervisors meeting. Two hardworking supervisors that have been on a subcommittee that I'm guessing they were probably put on that subcommittee as punishment maybe. But through their hard work and through the department heads, y'all were able to bring a balanced budget back. But through some backroom politicking and some underhanded and controversial means, it was amended to add over $3 million back in to some of the line items. That's not Botetourt. That's not the way we do business. And I find that unacceptable. But I do appreciate where you are holding the line on taxes. And I ask that you continue to do that good work. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Catherine Hatton. On deck, we have Brittany Krigler.
Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Hatton. I am a resident of the Valley District, and although I don't have kids yet, and I'm out of town and out of state frequently for work, I appreciate funding of our schools. Schools are important and foundational to the entirety of our society. I understand and I appreciate the need for a balanced budget, as everybody has spoken about. It seems that we have done that. We have also stated that we are not raising taxes. So I don't appreciate the scare tactics in scaring all these nice folks into thinking they're going to be paying more because $2.something million was added back into school funding. In 2.9 budget $1 million that's being added back in. If that number comes down with the cooperation of the school board, that's lovely. But I believe that they have already worked very hard on winnowing down what people are unfairly calling a wish list. 15 million was originally proposed because this is the first year of a 5-year cycle for capital improvements. That wasn't just because they were spending money here and there. That is a process that evidently they have been doing for the last several years, and it is misleading to characterize that as we went from 15 down to 2.9 and they were happy about it. That's unfair. So once again, I do think that we should take heed of a very famous quote from James Baldwin that said, the children in every single one of them is ours, all of ours. In order to have people staff our factories, to serve our wonderful food, to be functioning members of this community, they need to be well educated. The Virginia Bureau of Education misciting our rankings is wild as an assertion. I think that folks really need to dive in before they say things like that, because Botetourt County Schools is doing a lot with comparatively little funding. I think we need to give the administrators, the teachers, the instructional aides, who all get paid far less than the average in our area, a lot more credit than we're giving them right now. I am in budgeting and logistics for work. I understand that this is hard, but I do not think that we should be posting partial or misleading information to scare people into constricting their wallets. I invite everybody who thinks that we're wasting money in schools, please do volunteer at your school or take an instructional aid position. I promise the wages will be far less than would impact your Social Security payments. We need the community to get behind our schools. Thank you. And have a good night.
Our next speaker is Brittany Krigler, and on deck we have Brandon Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Brittany Krigler. I live in the Amsterdam district. I'm afraid there's been a serious overall misunderstanding of the school's budget from some of the decision makers in this room and community members. I don't want to say that the facts have been manipulated intentionally, but facts have certainly been misunderstood, and as a result, many voices have misinformed citizens on how the school budget works, and at times have shared wrong numbers and information. When you have money coming from the federal, state, and local levels to fund our school systems, it can be confusing to understand and communicate. But you can't advocate for level funding with logic that isn't sound. With decreased state funding, inflationary pressures with everything from fuel and food to utilities and the premium increases for health insurance, The school would have to cut over $3.5 million just to provide what is being called level funding from last year. The school board has already said it can work with a compromise of $2.8 million in additional requested funding, down from the original $4.8 they proposed. The school budget is large because the department is large, but a large budget does not mean an intentionally mismanaged budget. Please stop accusing our schools of this. No one wants higher taxes. We want fiscal responsibility and a balanced budget. Part of your job is to make hard decisions for our county's budget, and it is a hard and thankless job, and we appreciate what you do. But do it with integrity and clear eyes and the correct understanding of how the school budget works. The defamatory remarks that have been made by members of this community directed at teachers and admin in the name of not raising taxes has been disheartening. I grew up in Botetourt. I attended the old Colonial Elementary, Reed Mountain Middle School, and Lord Botetourt. After college, I came back to raise my family here, as have my 3 siblings. As products of this public school system, we are all successfully contributing members of society here. My kids, nieces, and nephews are all in these schools. My mom was one of the amazing teachers in this county who is now retired. We want Botetourt to thrive for the next generations. Some of you find no value in the public school system, and I'm not going to be the one to change your mind. But appropriately funded schools matter for the long-term health of our community, improves property values, and contributes to a stable local economy. It raises student achievement, which correlates with future successes, and helps with attracting and retaining the best teachers, which we currently have. Botetourt County schools are different in the best way possible because of our teachers, staff, and school admin. But they have to have the funding to stay, and they have to have the funding to continue to do the hard work they do day in and day out. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Our next speaker is Brandon Taylor. On deck, we have Jackie Lynch.
Good evening, members of the board, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. My name is Brandon Taylor, and I reside in the Amsterdam District of Troutville. I want to address with you tonight the importance of thoughtful county spending and continued investment in our schools and educational resources. Every budget reflects priorities, and while fiscal responsibility matters, education remains one of the most important long-term investments a county can make. Our schools directly impact our property values, workforce readiness, economic growth, and the overall quality of life in this county. Strong schools attract families, businesses, and professionals who both want to work and live in communities that value education. I completely support fiscal conservatism and responsible spending. Taxpayer dollars should be managed carefully, transparently, and responsibly. But in doing so, we cannot turn a blind eye to the issues facing our schools and their operating budget. Education is the largest portion of our county budget, as it should be. I have 2 young children at Greenville Elementary, and I'm incredibly thankful for the caring and compassionate staff there. I've thought for a long time why we are able to obtain and retain Botetourt County school educators and administrators. It's not because of the salaries, it's not the insurance, and it's certainly not the facilities. I believe it's because we have a community that values education, and because families work alongside our schools and the staff to support their children. That partnership gives teachers renewed energy and motivation to continue investing in our students every single day. After significant property tax evaluations 2 years ago, many residents expected meaningful reinvestment into our schools and educational facilities. Yet here we are still faced with aging buildings, outdated facilities, and playgrounds that show little visible improvement, all to which I'm appalled. The town halls regarding Lord Botetourt High School and the condition of our schools that happened years ago created hope that the school board and board of supervisors would work together toward long-term solutions. Unfortunately, those conversations now appear to have stalled, and I strongly tonight encourage both leadership bodies to move beyond personal disagreements and emotions and refocus on the shared goal of help shaping our schools and making our county thrive. I understand the requested increase of $2.8 million in funding is no small number, but in my opinion, it's one of the wisest and most important investments we can make for our teachers, administrators, taxpayers, and importantly, our children. Our students deserve safe and modern learning environments, and our teachers deserve the resources necessary to provide high-quality instruction. The decisions made today will shape the future of this county for decades to come. I respectfully ask each of you to consider these concerns and support the initial requests made by Supervisors Scotthorn, Nicely, and Snyder to fully fund the needed school division requested budget. Thank you for your time tonight and your service to our community.
Our next speaker is Jackie Lynch. On deck, we have Kimberly Trinichke.
Hello, Jackie Lynch, Valley District. I'm speaking tonight to you specifically, Dr. Scott Horn and Mr. Nicely and Mr. Snyder. You three, when you began your position in office, you took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Virginia. And in that, those documents insist on your duty to represent we the people, not hidden puppet masters. You have consistently ignored the will of the people. You've not listened, you have gone against petitions. You had a petition of 1,400 people, which you simply never even acknowledged. So it seems to me that you have forgotten your oath, or at least you never understood what it was in the first place. You should know that we, the people, want not high taxes, not more debt, not endless data center money sucking and water sucking problems. We want to have you, we want basically you to represent what we stand for, our freedom and our respect that our taxes come from work. And you don't seem to, you think they come from thin air. It's entirely reasonable for us to expect that you will match the expenses with revenues. That's not an unusual thing to do. And it's totally foolish of you to every single budget, you bring up more and more and more and more for the schools. But the problems that have been mentioned here tonight do not come from money lack, they come from money mismanagement. Money that has never, it goes again and again and again to higher salaries for administrators, and it doesn't go to fix mold. And this is going on for year after year after year. And you seem, we are not here to complain to you. We should be complaining to the school system, which is mismanaging the money. They don't need any more money. So just, they've had plenty. They've had plenty of chances. So I am here tonight to call on you to live your oath and represent us, the people of Botetourt.
Our next speaker is Kimberly Trinichke. On deck, we have Rick Painter.
Good evening, my name is Kimberly Trinichke, and I'm a parent in Troutville, a Daleville business owner, and a taxpayer who strongly supports the school funding request before you tonight. I think it's important to start by recognizing that many of the parents who strongly support investing in our schools are often not the ones with the most time or flexibility to attend meetings like this. Many are balancing careers, PTA meetings, extracurriculars, homework, and the constant demands of raising children. But their absence should never be mistaken for a lack of support or investment in our schools. They deserve to have their voices represented here tonight. Tonight, I primarily want to address the ongoing issue of capital improvement funding or lack thereof. For years, the school system has requested a capital improvement funding plan, and for years, those requests have gone largely denied. Meanwhile, as Ms. Davis displayed earlier, in the last board meeting, nearly every other county department has a mapped out capital improvement plan built into long-term county fiscal planning. Our schools do not have even that basic level of commitment from the county. To be clear, the school system is not asking for every dollar of a long-term capital improvement budget to be fully funded immediately. They are asking for a plan, a recognition that maintaining and improving the facilities where our children spend a great deal of time and education is not optional. Frankly, it is irresponsible that this was not already addressed years ago. We cannot continue treating school infrastructure as something to postpone indefinitely while expecting excellence from students, teachers, and staff inside those buildings. On a much smaller scale, let's consider a home improvement project, a bathroom remodel perhaps, as some board members may be familiar with one. It's unlikely that at the end of each year, you'd have additional funds just lying around to take on such a project. No, instead, you would plan ahead and mindfully set aside money over time before project commencement. That's the fiscally responsible way to manage a project that requires larger than average funding. And it's no different for our schools. Our schools deserve that same level of responsibility and long-term planning. Foresight is a vital piece of fiscal responsibility. Strong schools benefit all of us through stronger communities, stronger property values, stronger local economies, and by guiding the next generation of citizens and leaders. Botetourt County cannot continue to proudly market itself on the strength of its schools, celebrating high rankings, strong academics, and the quality of education that draws families and businesses here, families and businesses like my own, while simultaneously refusing to meaningfully invest in maintaining and supporting those same schools behind the scenes. Simply put, we cannot advertise excellence with one hand while withholding the resources required to sustain it with the other. I urge you to approve this funding request and to begin finally establishing a meaningful capital improvement plan for our schools. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Rick Painter. On deck, we have Terry Broccoli.
Rick Painter, Blue Ridge District, former substitute teacher long-term, former homebound teacher for Botetourt County Schools. Part of my master's degree was educational psychology, age group development, and teaching methodology. Part of my bachelor's degree was also teaching methodology. I want to first off remind the board that I've been speaking to this board for years to encourage you to get some actual training in leadership outside of your personal experience in business, because this type of leadership is a different type than what you have when you're the boss. I want to compliment Linda Rodman and Walter Michael for finally getting us a budget process that is a real budget process. In my current career, because I teach people how to budget. And you don't start with what you want and what you wish you had. You start with what you've got actually coming in. You don't count on winning the lottery or finding money on the dollar on the side. You start simply with what you know you've got coming in. You can have a contingency plan if suddenly you become wealthy and say, hey, we can do these things. But if you start with what you have coming in, you are realistic. I want to thank these two supervisors for showing leadership and being realistic. And I want to encourage you to keep it to what we can actually afford. Now, since a couple of our folks up here have shown up in Botetourt County leadership, our county debt has at one point almost tripled, to the point of where this year, in what you released the other day, we are spending over $7 million to pay off what you've already spent. Okay? Which means that $7 million could go to repair, could go to fund the schools, could go to do a lot of things, but you've already spent it. As I tell my mental health clients, you can only spend $1 one time. After that, it's gone. So you have now put yourself as leaders, the entire board, well, not these two specific, those who have refused to learn how to actually lead in this capacity, you have now put yourself to where you have to learn one of the hardest lessons in leadership. That is owning up to your screw-ups and coming up with a plan to fix it. I would love to fund more to the schools, but we're spending $7 million for what we've already spent. Somewhere there has to be a reality check. That $600,000 that you three added in the other day is wrong.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Terry Broccoli, and on deck we have Chip Tarbutton.
Terry Valley District. I'm not even sure where to start. I've been pretty disgusted since the last board meeting. I was one of the citizens that for the last 3 years have tried to be on the subcommittee for the budget. to see how the process works in this county. This year, I got enlightened even more as to what was going on. When each department did their line item and they looked at it to try to reduce the spending because we're in such a mess, the county, most of them did their jobs. I'm not too sure that I saw the schools come up with anything, and I'm not too sure that I saw the fire and EMS come up with anything. I do know one thing, that all of the people in this county have had to tighten their own budgets up, and we don't spend money that we do not have. And for you, Dr. Scott Horn, to add back in monies that we spent weeks on end trying to figure out how to balance the budget for the county was appalling to me. I suggest that this county stay within their budget, no more over the budget. The one that I loved was, oh, but we might be having all these tax revenues coming in from if this opens up or if that opens up, but we don't know when they're gonna open up. And then the planning commission doesn't know when they're even gonna start the project. So there's all this what if this money's coming in to balance the budget that I sat for 2 weeks with trying to figure out what you guys were doing with the money. I still don't know what the schools are doing with the money, and I've had this conversation since 1993. I've sat right up there in 1993 about the same problems with the schools. I highly recommend that we get an internal or external audit done on the schools, because we keep giving them money every single year and nothing is happening with the schools. They're worse now than they were in, 60 years ago, of course, but we've got to get a grip on what's going on. And I don't want my taxes raised because of the mismanagement and the spending that's going on in this county. And we cannot continue to think that we're having all this Google money coming in. We don't know if that's gonna end up happening. And we cannot continue to think that that money's coming until we have it.
Yeah.
Our next speaker is Chip Tarbutton. On deck, we have Jay Beasley.
Hi, my name is Chip Tarbutton. I'm in the Buchanan District. As taxpayers, I think we expect two fundamental things from the board: complete transparency and fiscal discipline to live within our current means. Transparency has not been the strength of this board in the past, particularly with the ridiculous way the Google data center deal was handled. That poor performance does not give me or a lot of my fellow Botetourt citizens a lot of faith in the decision-making processes that you have as a board. Heck, you can't even get a board meeting when people are not working. So it's kind of hard to understand. You have to understand, people don't really trust you right now. A few key things we want to make sure we get in here. The budget should be balanced realistically. We shouldn't be relying on wishful thinking, artificial balancing acts, or structural deficits. Every dollar appropriated for county operations should be backed by a dollar of actual verifiable revenue, not wishful thinking. The $600,000 budget reduction on the non-school budget that was mentioned earlier, that was a good first step in renewing a little bit of faith in your fiscal discipline and your transparency, which you've done ruined already. So if you restore those funds, it signals a retreat from the fact that you might actually be getting a little bit of fiscal discipline. So that would further damage your tarnished reputations. We should also keep the county budget flat. Schools are vital, and I thought it was interesting. I think we established $16,000 per student, and we can debate the size of the classes. We'll say it's 20, just to make split the difference. It's a lot of money per class. It's hard for me as a taxpayer to understand how we can't afford to do this, to pay the teachers properly. maintain the schools for that amount of money. And when we say we're in a city getting $20,000 per student, it's also hard to understand how that $4,000 is adding anything because their school system's terrible. You know, we need an open process here, and it's quite incumbent upon you guys to do a better job on that. And you have to understand the anger that you see about the data center, the anger that you see about all this stuff is your fault. The fact that we don't have in this day and age, there's a lot of money that's going into the school system, and you pitted the taxpayers against the teachers, and we're all fighting each other when you guys are the ones that have botched up the budget.
Our next speaker is Jane Beasley. On deck, we have John Higginbotham.
Jane Beasley, Deerfield Road, Amsterdam. You know how I feel about the budget from my address to the board last month. I have been to a lot of school board and board of supervisors meetings in my 47 years in this county. But this was the first time I've ever addressed the board of supervisors. And not only did I do it once, but I did it twice. And that was because I have never witnessed such outrageous shenanigans. It was awful. Mike, what you did at the last board of supervisors meeting was wrong, simply wrong. And you know it, as does every person who was there or has witnessed it from YouTube. I have known you for a very long time. You were my doctor for years. You were great as a doctor and a person. My visits weren't just about my eyes, but they always turned into some discussion, especially if it was college football season. Mac, what has happened and why? You mentioned BMI recently at a board meeting. You know why BMI is so great? They instill integrity, which is lacking among this board. Okay, Tim, now your turn. I didn't know you until you ran last fall. I didn't know the other candidate either, but you visited my home. I wasn't there, my husband was. You came back second time and to catch me, and you did. Facts and truth being really important to me and to you. I shared how Clinton in his first tenure was a great supervisor, but something happened in his tenure. And in my opinion, it was far less than desired he was. I won't touch on that this evening because you and I should talk about it. Tim, you know what was done at the last meeting was wrong, simply wrong. You attended every budget subcommittee meeting. All the county department heads worked diligently with the committee to balance the budget, and it was done. Citizens felt really good, and then you nicely and Scotland blindsided everyone. And what was even worse, Linda and Walt were blindsided. I have never witnessed such outrageous doings in my life. Skyhorn did not even attend any budget meeting, yet he changed everything. Put all the cuts back in, and you added more. Skyhorn, thank you.
Our next speaker is John Higginbotham, and on deck we have Chase Davidson.
I'm John Higginbotham, and I reside at 184 Lake Catherine Drive by Cannon. Chairman Scott Ward, members of the Board of Supervisors, I appreciate the opportunity to share my concerns with you this evening. As I've watched the budget process this year, I've become very frustrated with how the Board of Supervisors and the school board are handling the process. I don't understand how the school superintendent, the school board members, the county administrator, or the Board of Supervisors can approve budgets without having good information showing how the monies were spent in a detailed format for the previous year. It should be a very simple process. I envision general ledger numbers for each school and all the different departments. Without this type of standardized information, it seems it would be very difficult to make good decisions. At the last board supervisors meeting, Chairman Scott Warren surprised some of the board supervisors and the people attending with a suggestion that $600,000 be added to the county budget that I thought was pretty much finalized since the expenditures equal the projected revenue. This balanced budget was arrived at over the previous 3 weeks by primarily 2 of the supervisors here. I feel the county needs to base the budget on actual projected revenues and try to build up some serious funds to help keep taxes and other expenses down for the citizens. We should not be including future revenues for businesses that are not in business yet or even started their construction. After 250 years, actually over 250 years of being in existence, I don't feel the county should have the amount of debt it has. I do understand that some years the county, just like a business, will encounter some large and extraordinary expenses, but the county should have a lot of reserves saved up. I feel that the board of supervisors and school board should insist on receiving the following: an actual detailed report of the expenses the county and school board had for the previous year, and that's a standardized report, every year it's the same. A detail of the budget for the upcoming year, along with new expenditures such as capital improvements, and a recap of how extraordinary funds were spent for the previous year. Again, I almost understand how good decisions can be made without this information. I want to be clear, I'm not against funding the schools, but we need to be able to make good decisions using good information, which I do not believe is being provided. Also, I want to mention that I do not believe Linda and Walt are against our students and the schools, but they want accountability, and the county needs to have a budget that does not exceed our revenues. Well, that's it.
Our next speaker is Chase Davidson, followed by Patsy Dickerson.
Chase Davidson, Fincastle District. First, I'd like to thank each of you for your service to our community and for the time and energy that you dedicate to these roles. I do know that public service is not an easy responsibility, and while I personally would never want to run for public service, I do sincerely respect your commitment to what you do for the county. And regardless of where you stand on the budget, I do believe that all 5 of you are doing what you believe is best for the county. I want to briefly speak on why our school division deserves full funding and why our faculty and staff deserve salaries that are competitive with surrounding divisions. Botetourt County Public Schools is consistently recognized as one of the highest performing school divisions in the Commonwealth, often ranking among the top districts in Virginia. I would confidently put our teachers, support staff, and administrators up against any division in the state. I say that not only as an administrator, but also as a parent. I have 3 daughters who attend schools in this county, with 1 graduating next week. And I will be proud for my children to attend and graduate from any school in this county. One phrase I often use is you never fully understand the job until you're in it. Today's educators are school employees wear countless hats beyond instruction. Our faculty and staff help provide safety and security. We conduct fire drills, lockdown drills, ensuring classrooms remain secure. They manage student behavior, facilitate restorative conversations, document, analyze data, monitor student welfare, serve as mandated reporters when concerns arise. At the same time, they spend countless hours preparing instruction, differentiating lessons, which is a whole other different story for students with varying needs in the same classroom, and identifying learning gaps to help students succeed academically. They also serve as counselors, mentors, and mediators, helping students navigate anxiety, social challenges, and family difficulties. Many employees purchase classroom supplies out of their own pockets because the budgets are limited. Staff members also help organize clothing drives, food drives, community support efforts for students and families that are in need. These things often go they're usually not talked about and discussed. According to the reports from the National Education Association, a significant portion of educators work is uncompensated. Teachers regularly spend 10 to 25 hours outside of contract time grading, planning, communicating with families, attending trainings, and participating in required meetings and professional development. I'm going to skip down just to the bottom here just a little bit. Finally, I want to emphasize that our school division has been an excellent steward of the resources that has been given. We have all seen the conversations around the age of our facilities. 2 of our high schools approaching 70 years old. But because of the dedication of the custodians, maintenance staff, building leaders over decades, we are still able to educate students in those buildings. But the reality is time is running out, and eventually patching and repairing will no longer be enough. There has to be a long-term plan, and a plan cannot continue to be delayed year after year. Again, I thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Patsy Dickerson, and on deck we have Danny Goad.
Good evening, members of the Board of Supervisors and the Administration of Botetourt County. My name is Patsy Dickerson, and I serve on the Board of Directors of the Botetourt County Department of Social Services. And I represent the Fincastle District there. The DSS Board has been following the process of adopting a budget for 2027. Bless everyone who has been involved in this most confusing process. Our director, Dr. Raquel Rogers, presented the directors with the budget of approximately $2.1 million, our portion of the budget anyway, back in January, that would fund the department for 2027. The department, like other services provided in Botetourt County, is vital to the well-being of our population. To maintain the integrity and the state demanded requirements, the department needs to be fully staffed. I may be wrong, but as I interpret the proposed reductions in the budget, they primarily pertain to the cost of employment and the funding of the necessary people to make the department run efficiently and effectively. In April, the cost of funding for the department was about, in this last month, just for running that department for 1 month was about $180,000. And using this as an average amount for 12 months, that totals about $2.1 million. So I pulled these numbers from reports that we received at our board meetings, so I may not have interpreted them all correctly. But the $2.1 million seems reasonable to fund our department. I'm representing the board of directors and asking you to consider restoring some of the funding to the DSS so that the department can remain fully staffed and funded to serve the population of Botetourt County with professionalism and integrity. Thank you for your time and good luck with all the hard decisions that continue to face you in planning this county budget. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Danny Goad, and then we have 2 non-residents. On deck is Julius Lee.
Can you pass that to him so they can look at it, please?
These are you.
Is it okay to approach the board?
My name's Danny Goad. I live in the Valley District. You have before you one sheet that has 4 different page numbers on it if you look at it. In the name of those whose last names start with Z, we'll start with page 4 first. If you look at that first slide, or in the 4th slide, you'll see that there was a real estate tax shortfall of almost $4 million in FY 25. I bring this up again because Dr. Scott Horn asked a question at the conclusion of the meeting, not understanding why there was a fall in anticipated revenue. This is a simple calculation. It's the real estate taxes collected times the current uncollected rate of 3.15% divided by 1.4, which is the normal rate not collected. You're squeezing the Botetourt County taxpayers. In fact, 2.23 times as many people could not pay their real estate taxes in FY '25 after they were increased by $8.8 million. People don't pay their real estate taxes because they can't. That's the only reason people don't pay their real estate taxes. Elderly people, widows, people who are down on their luck, get kicked out of their homes because they can't pay the rent to Botetourt County. The taxpayers of Botetourt County are maxed out. If you look at slide number 3, you can see how that percentage has increased from 1.4% to over 3% of people that can't pay. With the payout, the break-even point of the Google data center being a minimum of 17 years, Google will not bail you out. They're going to put you further in the hole. 17 years before Google helps you at all. They're not going to bail you out of this one. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julius Lee. On deck, we have Christy Muddiman. Is Julius not here currently? Okay, we'll go ahead to Christy. And Christy is our last speaker that has signed up for this hearing.
Wait, I signed up and you guys lost my name out?
For the tax rate, budgets or tax rate?
Oh, okay, there's more talking.
We have a second public hearing.
Excellent, I'll be here all day.
Good evening, Chairman Scott Moore, members of the Board of Supervisors, county staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Christy Mudman, and I have the honor of teaching in this building every day. In addition to chairing our history department and serving as the junior class sponsor, I teach world history, U.S. history, and government. So it's a pleasure to join you tonight. I'd like to sincerely thank you for the proposed $2.8 million increase in the school's budget for next year. That proposal demonstrates a recognition that our students matter and that our students, teachers, and staff deserve support. I appreciate the work and the difficult decisions that go into building a county budget, and I'd like to express gratitude for making education a priority. Tonight, I respectfully ask you to take the next step and vote to approve the proposal at your next meeting. While this increase is important, it's also important to recognize that many of the challenges facing our schools are not short-term issues. They are ongoing infrastructure and safety concerns that require a long-term commitment and a sustainable plan for funding the county's capital improvement plan. In fact, many of the concerns are evident right here at Lord Botetourt High School, where we meet tonight. This building regularly experiences plumbing issues, leaks. There's inadequate storage building for students, teachers, and programs. Staff and students regularly encounter wildlife infestations inside the building. These are not isolated inconveniences. They are visible signs of aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance. There are also significant security concerns that deserve attention. Lord Botetourt High School still lacks some of the basic security measures that many schools now consider standard, including a secure vestibule at the main entrance, fully reliable camera systems, and effective communication systems throughout our building. In today's world, these are not optional improvements. They are essential safeguards for students and staff. As you sit in the building tonight, I ask you to consider not only the educational mission of our schools, but also the physical condition of the facilities where that mission takes place every day. I ask that you not view this budget increase as the finish line, but as part of a larger long-term investment in the future of Botetourt County. Investing in schools is investing in the future of this county. Strong schools attract families. They support local businesses. They strengthen property values and help ensure that Botetourt County remains a place where people want to live and work. Thank you again for your work, for your consideration, for your support of our students, educators, and community. I respectfully urge you to approve the proposed budget increase and continue building a long-term plan to address the critical infrastructure and safety needs facing our schools. Thank you.
And Dr. Scotthorn, these are all the people who have signed up for the budget public hearing.
Thank you very much. There are no additional speakers here. Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Now, I'd like to close and introducing the second public hearing. We'll now proceed with on proposed tax rates for fiscal year 2026, 2027 as advertised. As I mentioned previously, though, there are no projected tax changes for FY 27. So now I'd like to open the hearing. So, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two people signed up for the public hearing on tax rates. Our first speaker is Rick Painter, and on deck we have Terry Broccoli.
Rick Painter, Blue Ridge District. The tax rates that we have now are extremely high. Our county has a higher percentage of folks over 65 who are on restricted or limited income. So it's literally putting widows and elderly at risk of losing housing. Now, I appreciate you holding steady on this, but it is a time to look at all taxes. My question is, my understanding at least, I could be incorrect on this, but you gave Google a tax break on machinery. Why? I mean, why do they have a special tax rate on top of everything else that goes into this decision? Now, I realize you haven't voted on the budget, you haven't raised it yet, although you did that ridiculous 600,000 you put back in, and so forth and so on. So once again, you're looking at deficit spending, which is what has put us in the situation that we're in now, where we're spending over $7 million just to manage our debt as a county. Just think what we could do if you hadn't previously spent. Now, for years, I've been talking to you about leadership. You're learning one of the hard lessons of leadership. That is, you messed up over the years, it's caught up with you, and now, to be a real leader, you have to own up to your mistake and figure out how you're actually going to fix it without making it worse. So if you exceed, even if you keep the taxes and have this imaginary money coming in up for the schools and all that kind of stuff, that's financially not responsible. That's foolish. So what taxpayers are asking for is that you get the budget in line, reduce the deficit so we are not overspending, and then down the road actually consider when you get things back in balance from the mistakes that, and some of you are sitting here that have led to this mistake in this situation. I appreciate those that weren't involved, but now you've got the burden of fixing the problem. Raising the taxes will not fix the problem. Google will not fix the problem. You've got to find ways. The budget is the key. Just as anybody else who's in debt over their personal debt, they have to cut some places to pay others. You cannot just automatically expect more money to come from the taxpayers. So I appreciate that. I read that it was keeping everything level, but then I noticed that Google seems to have their own tax rate, if I'm correct, on machinery and et cetera. Why are you giving them a tax break?
Why?
Yeah!
Thanks.
And our last speaker for the tax rate public hearing is Terry Broccoli.
Terry Value. Mr. Moreau, I specifically remember when you first came to this county, I was happy that we were getting someone that was going to do good things for our county. And the one thing I said to you is just bring in a lot of businesses so you don't have to go after us, the taxpayers. And you've been quite successful at bringing in a lot of businesses and a lot of business revenue for this county. I'm just asking you to stay away from the personal property taxes. Like when, in 5 years, when we have to reassess everything, you should have plenty of money from all the businesses that you brought in to not increase our taxes. And if you go back to the budgets and only spend what you have coming in, instead of looking at forecasted money coming in, that might help also. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, those are all the people we have signed up for the tax rate public hearing.
Did you fill out form? We gave it to them. It's a budget hearing, so it's but not at this one. It's a budget hearing. Yeah, the next will be public hearing.
We have some public comment forms received on the topic of the data center. Just want everyone to know, if you're on that list, please come to the Board of Supervisors meeting on May 26th, where that topic can be discussed. These are public hearings for the budget and tax rate only. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. I now close the public hearing. And just a few remarks here on behalf of the board. I want to thank everyone who attended and shared your thoughts tonight. Your input will be considered as the board makes final decisions about the budget, the tax rates, and our regular meeting on May 26th. As chair, I plan to meet with BOS member on an individual basis between now and May 26th. To go over the input you have provided this evening, to potentially adjust the budget if needed. Just as a note, the BOS cannot add to the budget what has been advertised. However, we can reduce the budget if needed. Now, it is time to adjourn the meeting, and do I have a motion for adjournment? All in favor? Meeting adjourned.